يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Firstly, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So this topic is going to be about getting to recognize Allah Azza wa Jalla and getting to try and be in a position where Allah is with the servant. Okay. Now what we mean by Allah is with the servant is Allah's help, Allah's mercy, Allah's guidance, Allah's closeness in whatever way, in mercy and so on, is with the servant. Now all of us, when we are in this world, we're given a weakness when we start, and then we're given a strength in the middle, and then we're given another weakness after that. So weakness for us is in both ends. Weakness for us is in both ends. And in the middle, there is a strength. So Allah Azza wa Jalla has mentioned that in the Holy Quran, in Surah Rum, Surah number 30, ayah number 54. Allah said, Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min du'f or min da'f. Allah has created you from weakness. Thumma ja'ala min ba'di du'fin quwwah. Then after that weakness, He gives a strength. And then Allah says, Thumma ja'ala min ba'di quwwatin du'fan wa shayba. Then after that strength, He gives a weakness and old age. Yakhluqu ma yasha. He can create whatever He wants. Wa huwa al-alimul qadir. And He is the all-knowing and He is the one who has all power. Now what this shows is, for the human, for us to understand is, we start from weakness, we end in weakness. And in between is the strength that a person has. In terms of the weakness in the beginning, nobody really disobeys Allah Azza wa Jalla. Nobody wants to disobey while they're weak. So when Allah has made you and me a baby, or made you and me a young child, I know thought is still developing, but no one really in that weakness is going to rebel so much. Okay? So much. At the same time, when you look at this end of life, meaning when somebody gets to old age life, then again there's another weakness, which is shayba, which is old age. And at that time, many things can happen. I mean, physically one is weak, mentally they can become weak as well. And there are many weaknesses that can surround the human being because all his parts and all his organs are getting quite weak near the end of life. So when I say end of life, I mean, a person living like 60, 70, 80 years old, of age. But in between, Allah has given this strength. Now within this strength, within the period of strength, is the period that we need to be most careful. Because when a person has got strength, they see that they're independent from others. And this is the real reason why a human being will disobey Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah has mentioned that in the Holy Quran, or Surah Alaq, which is Surah number 96. Allah has mentioned, Kalla innal insana la yatgha ar ra'ahu istaghna. That the human being will exceed limits when the human being sees that he is independent. So the more a human being becomes independent from Allah Azza wa Jal, sees himself, and he never can truly be independent from Allah, but he feels that he is independent from Allah. And the more the human being becomes independent from other human beings and the system around him, the more he can actually start to rebel. Okay? The more powers he starts to gain, the more he can rebel. But what Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us of, and this is where we start to understand where we are with Allah, is there is one thing to know, just to know Allah. Okay? There's one thing to know Allah, and there's one thing to believe Allah. Knowing Allah is different from believing in Allah. And believing in Allah is different from believing in Allah deeply. And believing in Allah deeply is different from having Allah's ma'iyya or His attachment to the servant. Okay, let me repeat that because this is going to be the more or less the whole reminder that we're going to go through. So first is knowing Allah, then is believing in Allah, then is believing in Allah deeply, and then it is gaining the closeness to Allah Azza wa Jalla and having Allah Azza wa Jalla attached to the servant. Okay? When I say attached, I mean His mercy, His forgiveness, His guidance, all that gets attached to the servant. Okay? Now, why am I separating all of this? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Holy Quran, He says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. So Allah has separated the knowledge of Allah from the belief of Allah. Knowing Allah comes before the belief of Allah. So we know that there are many different people in the world who actually know Allah, but they don't believe in Allah. Yeah, and there are people who actually, believe in Allah. So this is Surah number 47, ayah number 19, ayah number 19. Allah says, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لِذَنْبِكَ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. That know that there is no God but Allah, or no one worthy of worship but Allah. When Allah says that, what He means is that there are those who will have the knowledge of Allah but might not transfer into the belief of Allah, into La ilaha illallah, because He separated the two things. Okay? And as we know from life, there are many people who are walking in life who even, we know that there are people who have studied about Allah, but they still don't want to believe in Allah. Okay? We know there's even people who know about Allah and who want to say rude things about Allah or the deen and so on. And we know those who are sympathetic towards the deen, but they still don't want to believe in Allah Azza wa Jalla. So let's take an example. In Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, you had Abu Talib, who was the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He knew about Allah. He was even, inclined towards Allah, or sympathetic towards the deen, and towards his nephew Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But yet he did not believe in Allah Azza wa Jalla in the way that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has propagated. The iman that we have in the Quran, he didn't do that. So that was him. There were others in Makkah who knew of Allah because they just knew Him as another God. They would respect Allah, but they respected their gods as well. But they didn't believe in Allah, meaning the way the Quran has told us, they did not make that transfer to believe in Allah as in one God. They did not make that transfer of their faith from one to another. So therefore, you've got that. And then you've got others who knew of Allah, but if you were to make the wrong move of swearing or making abusive remarks about their gods, then they would end up making abusive remarks about Allah Azza wa Jalla. Okay, so that was mentioned in the Holy Quran, and this is in the end of the 7th juz. The 7th juz. Allah said, Surah An'am, Surah number 6, ayah number 108, وَلَا تَسُبُّوا الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ فَيَسُبُّوا اللَّهَ عَدْوًا بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ. There are people, if you swear at their gods without if you start swearing at those people who worship others besides Allah, then they will start swearing to Allah Azza wa Jal, or making abusive remarks about Allah Azza wa Jal because of enmity and because they don't have true knowledge. So there are all these categories. Anyway, that's one aside. We are believers who believed in Allah Azza wa Jal. Now what typically happens is this. Most people who believe in Allah will then get separated into two categories. One is they believe in Allah, but they believe in Allah Azza wa Jal and they haven't really practiced Islam. Okay, so they believe in Allah and they really are not into practicing Islam. And we know many Muslims are out there like that. They've got the name of Islam. Okay, their name is, whatever it is, Muhammad, whatever it is. And they even know that the Quran is a holy book. That's, to them, it's just the holy book. That's the thing that you use when some jinn comes. When you're really frightened or something, that's the thing that you use for that, for barakah, for blessing, for holiness. That's what it's used for, right? And people who have got beards and sisters who got hijab, they're holy people who are taking the deen seriously. But for them, it's nothing that really pulls them towards the deen. So they believe in Allah Azza wa Jal, but it's very much surface level. Okay, That's one transition. At least they're better than the first category that know of Allah, but they haven't believed in Allah Azza wa Jal. And again, what then happens is, out of those Muslims who just believe in Allah, many of them, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, will at some point start to become more serious with their faith. And when they become more serious with their faith, they will then start to discover more about Islam and try to then practice Islam. Okay? Now here's one other thing I'm going to say before I get through my 4 parts. So let me not lose you here. First part I said to you is people who know Allah, but they don't believe in Allah. Second one I said believe in Allah, but that's all it is. And I'm still here. Third one is believe in Allah and believing deeply. Okay? Believing deeply. And the fourth one I'm going to come to is to get the closeness of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So I'm still here on the second one. So on the second one, I've said to you, there are Muslims who have a name of Islam, but they don't really practice. And there are those who start practicing. Now, before we get to the third one, here's something that you need to know. In all honesty, all the Muslims who start to practice Islam and start to become people who want to adopt Islam, not all of them are going to make the right pathway. And there's almost this thing where people think that, oh, because the Quran is one, don't get me wrong, the Quran is one, no problem. And the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is also one. But the Quran and the Sunnah, though they are one, the people that look at the Quran and the scholars that understand the Quran and the scholars that understand the Sunnah and so on, they vary in the way they look at it. So the Quran is one, but the way it's understood is many. The Sunnah is one, but the way it's understood is many. And there are many reasons why, because Islam has allowed this. It's allowed difference of opinion, and it's allowed, diverse opinions, and it's allowed certain ayats and certain verses and certain ahadith and so on might not all be seemingly fitting in with one another. Okay, because some things happened before, some things happened after in the Prophet's time, some things needs explanation. Every single ayah and every single hadith needs a context. It needs a way to understand it. And then what you're doing is you're taking that 1400 years ago, and then you're trying to understanding in today's world. There's going to be many different opinions, and you're also taking 1400 years of scholarly interpretation. You're going to have many, many different interpretations. Even if you stick with the Sahaba, even if you stick with the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, just them, you will come up with many different opinions on many different issues. And there's no going away from that. There's no going away from that. Some people say, no, akhi, there's got to be one Quran, one Sunnah, one Ummah, one. We understand that. We want that. But just because people have different groups and so on, and different ways of practicing, doesn't mean that Islam is now wrong, we've left the true Islam of Quran Sunnah. No, it doesn't mean that. We can embrace ourselves with our diversity. Do you all understand that? Yeah. We can embrace ourselves with our diversity. Diverse thoughts, people have different opinions, fine, as long as it doesn't go out of the fold of Islam. Now, to understand this better, I'm not going to divert here today, right now. All I'm going to say to you to understand this better, I've got a talk on the net called So Who's Right? That's one of them. Another one is called Salafi versus Sufi on the internet. So if you watch them, they're quite pretty sort of lengthy. If you're serious about understanding this, you can go through that and you can understand it. What I want to say to you is one thing here, which is when people start to practice faith, if they just leave it to just looking at a verse and looking at a hadith and seeing it as black and white, and that's it, that's the evidence, usually those people don't go deep into faith. Those people can practice more Islam, fine, but to appreciate Islam and to go deep and so on, a person needs to accept that everyone's opinions has got a background to it. So all the things in the Quran and Sunnah have got a reason behind why Allah told us to do something. When people understand that, they appreciate things a lot more. Then they're able to practice Islam without having a struggle within themselves and within their own people. Now you might not have understood this. Let me give you an example. Right? When you tell a child, and to explain this, when you tell a child, let's say, for example, someone's even in their teens, okay, someone probably 15 years old, 16 years old. When you try and explain to them that the adults are doing this for this reason, they don't get it. They're like, no, that can be done differently, right? Because they don't see it as politically as widely understood as the elders. Let me give you another example to understand this. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he consulted the Sahaba on the day of Uhud whether to go outside and fight or whether to fight within the community, right? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did that, then the youngsters were the ones that said, let's go out and fight. All the elders were united and said, no, let's stay in and defend the city. The elders said, whenever we fought in the past and we've defended Medina from within the city, we've never been beaten. And that's a track record. The youngsters said, no, last year we went out, there was Badr, we gave them a good, we won some action. All right? Now the youngsters, they influenced the consultation that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing. And then in the end, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went with the opinion of the youngsters. And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam put his helmet on and he put his armor on and he came out, the youngsters said, Messenger of Allah, we feel that we might have, said a little bit too much, got a bit too excited. And we want to now, we regret what we said. And the Prophet said, look, once a Prophet has put his armor on, he has to go out. There's no backing off now. Meaning that, Rasulullah has put the armor on and he's made his decision. And Allah has said, فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى. When you've made when you're completely certain what you want to do, then just depend on Allah. If Rasulullah was to now go back and say, let's now listen to the others, then that would show a form of weakness in his leadership. And that would have extensive damage in the way he would operate with people. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, I'll put my helmet on, I'm going to have to go out now. We've made the decision, let's go out. So the Prophet ﷺ went out. Now, why I'm saying this to you is that when youngsters come into the deen usually, and they look at the Quran and Sunnah, a lot of the times they don't appreciate the background behind every single thing that we're doing. And why is it there? They don't appreciate that. They don't understand it fully anyway. So for example, if you were to talk about youngsters and the masjid, they'll be thinking like, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Why can't we do this? Yeah. And the elders who are actually controlling the mosque, I know sometimes the elders who are controlling the mosque, sometimes they can be too rigid, I understand that. But there are rules in the masjid, there are rules in every place to try and keep organization, to try and keep everyone at bay. Do you all understand that? Yeah. If those rules were removed, then you'd have, you wouldn't have a masjid. You'd have kind of a club, right? I mean, I'm being serious about it. There's a masjid. I know I'm not going to tell you which masjid it is. I went 1 year, then I was invited for a talk another year, then I invited to talk for another year, and I saw this transition. I saw the youngsters come in, and I'm not going to say it's wrong for any youngsters to come in and take position in a masjid. I'm not going to say that. What they did is they influenced it in such a way that they wanted their version of Islam to be propagated in masjid. And honestly speaking, because they removed all the different elders and just the youngsters were in, then it became like, well, who's going to take over the mosque next? Okay, it became a bit of a real sort of situation. Now again, I'm not saying that don't allow youngsters to come forward. No, they need to come forward and we need to allow them to be with us. But as they come with us, they need to also learn. And they need to learn about these rules and they need to learn why we have certain rules. What's the reason why we do certain things? Sometimes you might see something very easy, like, why can't we just do this, right? But you've got to then take in consideration everyone else, and there are many things that you have to put in place. Anyway, my point of saying this is, when early on people believe in Islam, they think that they are just taking it deep and people get overwhelmed. Now, you might have experienced this, you might not have experienced this. if you feel that you're deep in Islam, if you feel, wow, mashallah, wow, you listen to the Qari, and people come to the deen like this, they're Muslim, then they've now found their deen, and they're like, wow, that Qari, mashallah, when I hear that Qari, I'm like electrified. And then people are on a buzz. And a few months later, they end up going to Umrah, and when they go to Umrah, it's like, man, I've been to Hollywood, and I've been to Dubai, and I've been to wherever else, Spain, wherever, but I've never seen anything like that. And they're wowed by it, which is good. But what has happened is, this is just a phase. You understand? Nothing really has gone in deep. Nothing has gone in deep. You've got to give any person a few years to see where they are. Because you would have heard some brothers, they come in 2 years, they're practicing, after that slowly, Some sisters, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, gone. Right? Some others, a few more years, gone. Now, long term, for a person to come to this stage where they're practicing and they're believing deeply and they're practicing very well, for this to happen, what a person needs first, they need to understand the deen properly. So one thing is to understand that whatever Allah's told us, to understand the reasons behind it and to appreciate it better. And to stay with that practice for long term, a person needs some form of guidance or some form of, either it's a group, or it's a person who's a scholar, or they need some real person, some real sort of, way of keeping them within that fold. You can't do this on your own. It's very difficult for a person to be on their own and to be believing very, very deep. It can happen, that's fine, but we normally need some kind of great larger group, or we need to be with others, right? And we need to be monitored as well by our brothers and sisters, because you can't just, if you're just on your own, you might just go slightly astray with your beliefs and with your thoughts. We've seen this, okay? Sometimes people get a bit too, they get too much in their beliefs, and what they end up doing is they end up making things up themselves. Okay, they end up making their own beliefs, and they start to go against their teachers. Then they start to go against everybody and say, you're wrong. My understanding of the Quran is right. My understanding of the Sunnah is right, and it can go towards someone being astray. Anyway, I don't want to go too much off, so let's start again. People who know Allah, okay? People who know Allah and then they believe in Allah. People who know Allah, believe in Allah, but it's not on the surface, they go deep. And then people make the transition over here from the second one to third one of understanding and appreciating diversity. That's what it really is. And when people do that, then they calm down. Most of the arguments we have between groups is between these two. Why? Because they don't appreciate diversity. Everyone's saying I'm right. Everyone's saying let's unite, but it's like, let's unite on my views. Do you guys understand? Yeah. They're all saying the same thing. They're saying let's all unite, but unite on my views. The other guy's saying the same thing. Let's all unite on my views. But that's not unity. And nobody's going to be able to sort out many different groups and everyone's saying, okay, let's just choose this one person and unite on this. It's not going to happen. What we need to do is accept that he's got an opinion. As long as it's within certain boundaries, then fine. He's got reasons for that. We'll accept it. Let's accept diversity. And when people do that, then they can find space to try and practice their own faith better. Okay? Now, when a person comes here and they want to believe and they want to start to practice Islam better, let me give you a principle between this last thing before you just get onto this. There's a way of measuring every single group out there, and this might help you. This might help you, inshallah, of understanding it. In my view of analyzing the many different groups out there, not any one single group has got all the answers, and not any one single group can revive Islam or do the best for all the Muslims. Not any one single group. Why? Because if you look at how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he formed his group, and the original sunnah of what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam formed, he based it on 6 things. Okay? Number 1 is to have the balanced belief. Okay? Balanced belief. Number 2 is to be balanced in worshipping Allah. Number 3 is to be balanced in the way we are as a society. Okay? Number 4 is to be balanced in the way we have our transactions and our dealings. Number 5 is to be balanced with our character and personal development. And number 6 is to be balanced with our political way of engaging with one another across communities of the world. Okay, so let me say these 6 again. Number 1 is to be balanced in our beliefs. Okay. Number 2 is worship. Number 3, society. Number 4, dealings. Number 5, personality, okay, and inner self. Number 6 is politics and what they known as siyasa, okay, politics or governing ourselves in a large part. Now, number 1, when I said balance, I mean there are some Muslims who will be too extreme in their beliefs. They take beliefs too seriously, and there's others who take beliefs too lightly. You all understand that? Some people, they take their beliefs to an extreme. All it is all beliefs, and they get, if you don't believe in this and believe in that and believe in this little thing, if you don't believe in this little thing, then you're not part of me. That's a bit too extreme. And they split the hair and they split that hair and they split another one. It's too much. And others are like, no, akhi, don't worry, everybody okay. That don't do any justice. So both of them are extremes, and the one that you need is the balanced one, right in the middle. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was balanced with that. Again, this would need a whole topic to talk about it, a whole discussion to talk about it, but I'm just giving you the service of it. Number 2 is ibadah. There are some Muslims who are into their ibadah. They alhamdulillah, they're into it, but they go over the top. It all becomes like rituals. They're more into just doing their worship and ibadah. They're in a corner of a masjid, whatever, and they're not bothered about what's going on outside. That's not right. And there are other Muslims who say, I'm okay, I'm okay. My heart is attached to Allah. I don't need to pray. There's some who pray and worship Allah too much and go over the top, and there's others who say, no, I'm okay. My heart is with Allah, don't worry. I'm a good Muslim. I don't lie. I don't cheat. I don't need to worship. There's got to be a balance in ibadah. And the Prophet ﷺ had that. With that, society. When I say society, I mean how we interact with each other. There are certain Muslims who only care about themselves. And there are other Muslims who will care about others. Now, in the societal one, again, we don't want to go too much on one side. There's always a balance. So if you're always there looking after others, but neglecting your own needs, your own sort of family, your own self, that's wrong. And there's others who will concentrate on just the family and not the wider society. That's wrong. Okay. Number 4, dealings. There's certain Muslims who will go to an extreme in this. It becomes like, okay, halal business, but halal business so much and other things, subhanallah, that it's just all about money. And the other extreme is that you don't even care about it. You say, forget it, money has never sorted any problem out, forget that, we don't need to, make any effort with money. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Some people think that when you go towards making business, astaghfirullah, look at him, he's gone towards the dunya. That doesn't mean he's gone towards the dunya. As long as he has got his money in his hands and not in his heart. Okay. Once you've got your love of the world in your heart, then it's a disease. So anyway, there's got to be balance in the 4th thing, which is to have in the way that we transact with one another. We've got to give sadaqah and zakat and so on, fine, but you can earn money as long as you haven't made yourself love the the monies and the transactions that you're making. Number 5 is personal issues. So in this, inshallah, we'll try and do a whole course one time about this. But what this is, mashallah, this is like, well, easy, man. Take it easy, bro. It's okay. Hopefully that's better. You still can hear me, yeah? There are many diseases of the heart: jealousy, pride, arrogance. People just hate one another and so on. These are diseases of the heart, and those need to be removed. And that's when I said about personality, and they need to be replaced with taqwa, with Allah's consciousness. They need to be replaced with ikram, being generous with towards others. They need to be replaced with ihsan, to being excellent in oneself in their deeds and so on. So that's in the heart, and the person needs to always look after this. Again, some people have gone to an extreme. All they do is think about themselves and about their illness of the heart and nothing else. And all they want to do is just dhikr and dhikr and dhikr. That's all they want to do. And others go to another extreme. They don't bother about this. And it corrupts them. It corrupts their organization. It corrupts others around them because they've got the pride and jealousy and things around them. Do you all understand? Yep. That's 5. And the last one is some people neglect their duties towards a wider globe and a wider sort of world in terms of politics. And some people go into it too much that they neglect some of the other 5 before it. Now, what a Muslim needs to understand is all of us, we can't get into all of these 6 at one time. We've got to understand this. I haven't found a group that balances all of these 6. If you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, they had a very good balance in all 6. The beliefs were balanced, ibadah was balanced, the way their society was balanced, the muamala dealings was balanced, their personal, reconciling their problems within them was balanced, and their way that they dealt with the wider, societies around them and countries around them, and how to deal with them in terms of the politics was also balanced. You'll get what I'm trying to say. Yep. You look at any group today. This is my point to you. You look at any group today, they will be balanced in some of these things. They will be short in some of these things, and they will be high in other things. Okay, and they will be completely probably neglectful in some things. So you might find one group that, for example, one group that is okay in its aqidah, is okay in its worship, it's okay in the third one, dealing, but then in the fourth one it gets down, and the fifth one might be up, but the sixth one is completely down. They've got no consideration for the brothers across the world. Okay. Then you've got some other groups, they'll be high in the sixth one, they've got a lot of concern about the brothers across the world, and they might be high also in the first one, but then they might neglect the 4 in between, or they might be quite low with the 4 in between. You all understand what I'm trying to say? You look at any group, is anyone lost with what I'm trying to say? No? You look at any group across, most Muslims, they suffer by thinking that, oh my God, which group is the right group for me to get into? And if I don't get into this group or that group, then I'm lost. Well, I'm telling you right now, there is no real one group that if you didn't get into, then you're lost. There are many groups that have got a lot of things good about them, but many groups that have got things that are deficient in them. Doesn't matter, you need to just be around brothers and around others in a way that we help one another to become deep in our beliefs and in the way that we practice Islam. Okay? So let me go back to the original thing that I said, which was knowledge of Allah, then belief of Allah. Then you've got 2 splits there: belief of Allah on the surface, then belief of Allah that gets deeper, but it doesn't last very long. And to appreciate one's whole awareness of the Quran, the Sunnah, the context, the things behind, the reasons behind why Allah has told us to do certain things, and then to understand the groups and what they have, and the 6 things I told you to understand all that, gives space for a person to come here to this one where you've got the space now to practice your faith and to become deeper. Okay? Now when a person starts to get to this stage, what a person does is tries to do as much as they can. That's all Allah wants us to do. We should do as best as we can. Now let me give you an ayah regarding that. Allah Azza wa Jalla has said in the Holy Quran, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear or be aware of Allah Azza wa Jalla to the best of your ability. Okay, this is in Surah number 64, Surah Taghabun, ayah number 16. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ وَاسْمَعُوا وَأَطِيعُوا وَأَنْفِقُوا خَيْرًا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. Allah says, be aware of Allah Azza wa Jalla as best as you can. Listen, obey, and spend. This is most best for yourselves. Now, what Allah meant by that is that not all of us are equal and not all of us can do everything. If you believe that you want to do everything for Islam, everything for the Muslims, then straight away you failed. Let me say that again, because most Muslims are in this trap. They want to do everything for all the Muslims and everything for Islam, and they want to be all to, get out there and do everything. You can't. I'm sorry, but you can't. In any corporation, any place where you're working, you don't do everything. You're somewhere in line, in position. You're either in the lower level, just working on a desk, okay? You're probably a bit higher in an office of your own. You're probably in a bit higher, you're managing others. You're probably a bit higher whether you're the regional manager, or you're probably a bit higher whether you're the director of the company. Whatever it is, everyone has got their own layer of doing things. Even the director of the company, he doesn't do everything. He don't sit on a desk and start to work like the ones on the bottom ground floor. You all understand that or not? Yeah. Everyone has their little part to do in this organization. And in Islam, not every Muslim can do everything. If you feel that I've got to do all the political things, and I've got to also do all the domestic things, and I've got to also look after the society and this and that, and I've got to save this thing and save that thing, you're not Superman, okay? You're not Superman and you're not going to be able to do it. Allah has given you a brain and given you certain abilities to do whatever you can. Now what does that mean? That means if Allah's giving you excess money, He's giving you excess money, then you use your excess money to help Islam. Allah's giving you excess time, then use your excess time to help Islam. Allah's giving you a good mind to bring up ideas, then you become an ideas man for Islam. Allah's made you a person who's able to monitor things and your eyes are always reading things and you're able to sort of bring information, then you do that. Allah's made you a spokesperson, then you do that. We need certain people to be spokesperson. Allah's made you a person who's hands-on, then you be a hands-on person. You all understand? You understand? That's what we've got to do. And this is where the deeper part of belief and faith comes in with practice, which is just do whatever Allah has created us to be and to do. Now, some people here might think, well, I can't do many of these things. If you can be a good family man or a good family woman, then just do that. Khalas. If Allah hasn't given you more than that, then that's it. That's the capacity Allah has given you, and just do the best of what you can. If people think that, you know what, I've got to be like so-and-so, I've got to give da'wah like so-and-so, I've got to achieve something like so-and-so. Look, don't measure yourself with others all the time. You're different, he's different, he's different, he's different, she's different, she's different. Everyone's different. Okay? Not everybody has got the same abilities. So do what you can. And in doing that, what you've got to understand is here, the more you start to become a person who goes deeper with their faith and their actions, and they do more and more for a longer period of time, you are now making the connection with the fourth one, which is for Allah's ma'iyya and for Allah's closeness to be with a person. How do you get to that level? What happens here is a person, when they practice, for example, you're doing your 5 daily prayers, you're doing your, you're giving your sadaqahs whenever you can. You're trying to control your akhlaq and your character, and you're doing your best in trying to be good to others and so on. You're trying to do your duty towards your other brothers to the best of ability of what you can do. When you do that, and a person's awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal increases, and increases and increases. Because all of these actions you're doing, you're only doing them because of who? Because of who? Allah. Eventually you start to do them without even thinking about other people. This is where the final connection is made. In the beginning it was like, I need to do this because my brothers need to see me doing this. I need to go to the masjid because if I don't go to the masjid, it's going to be a shame. I need to wear my hijab because if I don't wear my hijab, my mom is going to see me and somebody's going to see me and they're going to report me and it's going to look bad. People are doing this, why? Because of other people. And there are many subtle ways all of us are caught into this where we're doing something because of others. I need to make sure that I behave nicely in a community of people because people are going to judge me. I need to make sure I don't look at her right now because people are watching me. But if I was alone, I would probably be looking. You understand? People are not looking because others are watching. People are not putting on the certain types of things they shouldn't be listened to because there's others around them. People are not watching certain things on the TV because there's others sitting around them on the sofa. But if they were alone, it'd be different. You understand? When a person's lonely time, private time, for a long period of time, is the same as the public domain, that's when they've shifted to this fourth one. So, whether somebody sees me or not, I'm going to behave good. You know, there's this quote I came across the other day. If a person goes out to, let's say, to a restaurant, and normally this person's a good family man and they'll talk nicely to the family, they'll talk nicely to the brothers in the masjid and so on, but they get to a restaurant and they'll speak rudely to the waiter, then there's still something wrong there. You all understand? Why would you want to speak rudely to the waiter? Okay, if the waiter got something wrong, you can tell him in a nice way. I mean, if you really had to tell him, then you can tell him in a way that still is within limits, but not to speak to him rudely and be abusive to the waiter. Why you want to be abusive to the waiter? If you can have that abusiveness inside you, that you can actually use it at certain places, but you won't use it with your family. No, I'm a good Muslim. I won't use it with my masjid people. No, I'm a good Muslim. But I'll use it if anyone dares do anything like that to me in a restaurant, like a waiter, someone. There's something still not right. Okay? Because if you really were not being abusive for Allah's sake, then you don't do it to the waiter. Do you all understand? Yeah? That's the transition. What is the reason why you're not doing it? Some people are not bad because of their own image in front of other people. It's like, I'm a good person, I'm not going to be bad. Some people even say that they get really, really angry. They say, I don't really usually swear, but, yeah, and they want to say something. I mean, what's the breaking? Why are you doing that? Because Allah is still there. Your understanding of Allah Azza wa Jalla is still there. Okay? And what I said to you earlier on in the talk, which is Allah gave a weakness, and then He gave strength, then He gave weakness. Would you really do that when you're really weak? So let's imagine someone who's in hospital and they're young, a young man in hospital, and they've got a nurse that's attending them, and they're slightly upset in the way the nurse is. If they've got good akhlaq, good character, and Allah is the reason why they're speaking and how they're speaking to others, then if they've got an issue with the nurse, they'll still say it in a nice way. If they've got bad akhlaq, bad character, then they're going to be rude towards the nurse, yes? Young person, got the, hey, what do you think this is, huh? They've got the voice, they've got the strength, yeah? But if the same person was in their 70s, and they're weak, and they're thinking, my voice doesn't even reach her ear, yeah? And even if it does, man, how am I gonna get, her to feel that she's got the bad end of my stick? No, I can't do that, right? People in their weakness sometimes might not say anything, and that's probably because of the weakness. What Allah wants to see from us is, when things are right, when you've got the power to do whatever you want, but you still don't do that for Allah's sake, or you got the power not to do something but you still do it for Allah's sake and you're strong and so on, that's when you get to the fourth one. That's when you get to the fourth one. Okay, so let me explain this slightly further. What Allah Azza wa Jal wants to see from us is that we not only practice in Islam, not only have we made some reconciliation with our beliefs and others and so on, we're going to move on in life in doing these things in a way that whether others see us or not see us, we're still doing it. So for example, a person who prays Tahajjud Salah, Salatul Layl, I'll give you another example. A person who prays that in the night time, that person who prays in the night time, what's the reason why you're doing it? Is it so that the next day you can go and gossip about it to your friends? I mean, I'll be honest with you, I was imam in a masjid and I used to see these guys, subhanallah, I was thinking, may Allah forgive me, may Allah forgive him, yeah? Say Ameen. The guy comes in for Fajr and then he's got his hand on his back. Like that. He's walking. So naturally, what are you going to say to him? You say, what's the matter, brother? Are you okay? She goes, back. You okay? He goes, yeah, I just did too much tahajjud. La hawla wa la quwwata. Every other day he would come and he would, I just did too much tahajjud, too much qiyamul layl. La hawla wa la quwwata. I wasn't rude to the guy, I wouldn't say it to the guy. But I was thinking, why do you want to do that? Why do you want to, and the whole point of you doing that is that you want to advertise to others that, I remember one person saying this to me once. There's a few people in the society, okay, like normally the Fajr, the people who come to Fajr, okay? Normally, if you're in this masjid, you come to Fajr, you normally know more or less who comes to Fajr, who doesn't. Okay, so you're going back home. En route, let's say for example, one of the brothers who was with you, normally on a Fajr, he's not there today. Now, if you go past his house and then you see the light's not on, and you have bad thoughts towards him, he missed his Fajr today. His light wasn't on. When I was coming for Fajr, his light wasn't on. When I'm going back after Fajr, his light wasn't on. And then later on when you meet him, you say, brother, where was you? And he says, I wasn't there today, but looking for an excuse, and you say, I know. Why? Again, it's numbers, it's people compete. If you're doing it for Allah's sake, it doesn't matter whether he comes or not. It's you, isn't it? It's about you and Allah Azza wa Jalla. And second thing is, you're supposed to have good thoughts about your Muslim brother. Maybe he didn't switch his light on, fine, but maybe he's done it earlier before you walked even. Maybe he's done it earlier. Maybe he's done it after you walked by, he put his light on. Why do you have to judge him like that? I remember one guy, la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, he goes to the extent of walking early towards Fajr, and the day this is just going too much. The day he doesn't see that other brother's light on early in the morning, he sees it on Fajr and says, you missed your tahajjud today, didn't you? Because when I walked by, I didn't see your light on. It's like, why are you making, and there's some people who start all this competition with the Quran. It's like, how many Qurans have you done? I've done more than you. Why? Why make this a competition? So the point of saying this is that when people are doing it for Allah's sake, it becomes something different. Whether it's akhlaq, whether it's in ibadah, whether it's in anything else, it becomes something different. You don't do it because you're being matched against somebody else. You do it simply because you're doing it for Allah's sake. And I'll give you another example. SubhanAllah, even as imams, we have to be careful as well. We have to be very careful. I remember one person who was with me in a particular Taraweeh with me, this brother, I think his name was Hafiz Abdullah or something, he said a wonderful thing to me. He said that we've got to try, as imams, we've got to balance three different things when we're praying and leading the Taraweeh prayers. He said, number one, we've got to try and make sure that we're reading correctly with tajweed, with the correct pronunciation. That's number one. Okay. Number two, we've got to keep our mind on the Quran to make sure that we're not making mistakes. Okay, so you've got to concentrate on not making mistakes. So one is you've got to say correctly, one is you've got to make sure that you're not making mistakes. And he said, number three, more important, we've got to say it, what we're saying, the recitation, by thinking Allah's listening to us and not people listening to us. You understand? Because once you start getting people in your mind, oh yeah, mashallah, I'm saying it's so nice. Oh, I got the pronunciation right, I got the part right, but then your head is over there, yeah? People are listening to him, people are giving me credits. It's wrong. And that is wrong. You've got to try and keep your concentration that Allah Azza wa Jalla listen to me. And that's real sincerity. And when a person gets to that level where it's not about others, it's about them and Allah Azza wa Jalla. Their deen and their belief and practice and Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's where you see the beautiful Muslim. Those are the Muslims me and you will not have trouble with. You all understand or not? Those are the Muslims you won't have trouble with. Those are the Muslims you can stay with them. Even you as a Muslim, even non-Muslims stay with them. Subhanallah, when they get to the fourth stage where Allah's closeness is with them, Allah says in the Holy Quran, Inna Allaha ma'al muttaqeen. Allah is with the people who are conscious of Him. That's what it means. He said, Inna Allaha la ma'al muhsineen. Allah is with those people who excel in their good deeds. They're doing the good deeds just for Allah's sake. That's what it means. And they're trying to do their best in whatever deeds they do. Allah said, Inna Allaha ma'al ladhina amanu. Allah is with those people who believe. Meaning they get to this stage of belief. And Allah has added, Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Allah is with those who hold themselves on to whatever they have to do and withhold themselves against whatever they shouldn't do. That's real meaning of sabr, of patience. So this part is what? People who are conscious of Allah, people who are doing the deeds just for the sake of Allah, people who deeply believe in Allah, and people who hold themselves onto the deen, meaning for whatever period they're living on this earth. They're really taking it serious now. Okay? And people who are staying away from any bad deeds for the sake of Allah. These four places in the Quran, these four ma'a means with. So when I said to get the closeness of Allah, I mean these four things. So to get these four things, these are four qualities that believers need to have within them. And once they get to that stage, they're not a trouble to other Muslims, they're not trouble to other non-Muslims. They are in good faith with Allah Azza wa Jal, and their practice and beliefs will be something that they will be very sort of comfortable with. And they've got no difference in their private life and their public life. They've got no difference in their private life and public life, and whatever they're doing for Allah, they would do it anyway, and they do it wherever they have to do it. It's not because somebody saw them or didn't see them or somebody didn't check against them. It's got nothing to do with that. They do it anyway for Allah's sake. Right? So just to give you a summary of the whole of the talk, okay? We all move through these four stages, and our whole objective is to get to the last one. Right? Number one is that we just know Allah. Number two is that we believe in Allah, but we just believe, that's it. To get deeper in the belief of Allah Azza wa Jal, you need to reconcile a lot of things. So in between this one and that one, to believe in Allah deeply and get your practice more, is that a person needs to understand, appreciate the Quran and Sunnah has got diversity, and also with many groups that are out there. You've got to be with other brothers and others to fulfill your deen. But with many groups, there are 6 things I said to you to have a balance in all those 6, as best as you can, right? And you practice as much as you can of those 6 things. Your akhlaq, first is your aqeedah and your beliefs. Number 2 is your worship. Number 3 is your societal things. Number 4 is your muamala, your transactions. Number 5 is your inner sort of self and personality. Number 6 is the wider global context and helping other Muslims in siyas and politics. And you try and understand that very well, that no group has got it perfect around. Okay, so try and work with whichever group you can, but most of all, when you work together, your practice has to become long term. And when you make that move where you're doing it for Allah's sake, whatever you're doing in your public life and private life, all that is equal wherever you're going, and you get those 4 last qualities I said, you moved on to the last one, and you're inshallah, bi'idhnillah, you're a very good believer, and that's our goal. Those 4 qualities I said is to have deep iman, to be conscious of Allah, to do things for the sake of Allah, and best as you can, ihsan. And then the last one is to withhold yourself onto the deen and stay away from sins. And that's when you've got ma'iyya, which means that Allah is with you. You'll see the help of Allah, the guidance of Allah, and so on with you. Now, the final thing I'm going to say to you is, if you've ever questioned and said, Allah Azza wa Jal has said in the Quran that He's going to help the believers. Yes or no? Yes. And we find that across the world, our countries are all blazing with this problem and that problem, and this country's got this problem, and that country's got this corrupt government, and that one, the people are, really mercilessly persecuted and so on. That one problem, this one, and you're kind of going crazy. Why? And you can't make sense of the Quran and what's going on out there. Have you now understood the reason why? Yes or no? Because there are people out there in these countries who just know Allah, but they don't believe in Allah. And there are those who believe in Allah, but they've only got just the name of Islam to them. Do you understand? Many of them. Many of them. In fact, they're probably the majority. And then you've got those who practice Islam, but they're stuck here. They're stuck here. Why? Because either they they just see things black and white. They start getting into group arguments, and they start to fall out with one another. And there's a lot of rivalry and things that go on, and it becomes a warfare between groups and so on. They're stuck here. They haven't reconciled their faith with practice in long term. Allah's promise is for these two here. The believers that practice long term, okay, and the believers that are moved to the 4th one, which is they've got the closeness of Allah. These two, Allah's not talking about this one, that they believe, they practice for a short while, and they just want the help of Allah. No. They've got to believe and practice long term, number 3. Or they've got to become the 4th one, which is very, deep in their faith and so on, and Allah's closeness. These two Allah has promised the help of. And they're very few in our world today, in all these countries. Even in the mosques that we're in, you'd find that these last two, very few. Like let's say, for example, even the practicing people who are long-term practicing in this masjid, you compare them to the people who are in our society. You'll get the answer. Do you understand or not? Yeah. Just for a normal salah, you'll see that it's not even quarter, not even 20%, not even 10% of the Jummah. Yes or no? Yeah. 10-20% of the whole Jummah that comes here, that's all it is. And when you look at even Jummah is nothing. Look at Eid. We have four times Jummah, or 3 times the Jummah here. Right? That's any masjid. So you already, if you look at the whole, and even then there's some Muslims that don't even come for Eid. So let's start off with 100% of the Muslims in this society, and this is pretty much everywhere. Start with 100% of them. Let's say 10-20% won't even come for the Eid Salah. Fine, you got 80%. Out of the 80%, you've got about almost, I would say, 60%, or I'd say, even if you say 50% of the 80%, they come for Eid, but they don't come for Jummah or anything. Out of the 30% that come for Jummah, you've got about 20%, all right? Another 20% that probably don't pray the 5 daily prayers. They just come for the Jummah and gone. Or half of them at least. So you've got 15% of the 100%, 15 or 10% that actually do the 5 daily prayers. And out of them, there's probably more than half that are on and off, praying here, not praying here. They're not practicing Islam deep properly. So you're left with what? Less than 5%. And out of the less than 5%, some of them are caught in between that thing that I've said to you, and they don't make it to this one. So you're left with, I don't know, 2-3% of the Muslim Ummah that have actually made it here and here. If you really look at it properly, then you understand why we're in the situation we're in. Have I made myself clear? Yeah. Now I'm going to open the floor to any questions. Open the floor to any questions. Yes?
So you've outlined the problems. Have you got any solutions?
Yes. Well, the whole thing is just give us solution, which is, it's a good thing that you're asking, which is to think about solutions. I mean, it depends where you are here. Whoever's listening to this, it depends where they are.
You know, you said the whole wider society. You said like the majority of them, obviously.
See, the thing is, we shouldn't focus on them. That's the real problem. If I always focus on they've got it wrong, oh my God, when are they going to get it right? And I forget about myself, then forget it. That's what he's doing as well. He's looking at me and saying, when am I going to get it right? And we're all looking at each other saying, they should get it right, they should get it right. And everyone's doing the same thing, finger pointing at others, but nobody's really saying, let me get it right, let us get it right. Okay? The focus has to be on myself, the focus has to be on the people around me, and the focus has to be the best I can do for myself. Once we do that, then we're somewhere. Because the Ummah, honestly, I went to Palestine a couple of years back. And one of the Shaykh said there, he said, spot on. He said, you guys from England are really worried about what's happening in Palestine. He said, we appreciate that. We appreciate that you've come. And he said, we want you to come. We want you to come and visit us in Al-Aqsa and visit us. He said, don't get us wrong. But he said, most of you guys come here thinking that, you know, you want to do something for the problems here. When what you're really forgetting is the problems that you left home. And you got equal problems at home in different ways. And all the Muslim countries have got their own problems in their own ways. And if everyone starts to think that, oh, the problem is over there, once we sort that over there, everything's going to be right, and you forget about your own problem, in your own country, in your own place, then nothing's going to ever get sorted out. He said, we appreciate you coming here, but he said, go back to your places, and he said, concentrate and try and rectify the problems within your own communities, like the people who don't even know how to pray, how to read, how to connect with Allah, get the right knowledge, get close to Allah. They don't know that. They've got no pathway. So try and create all of that. That was his point, and fulfill the wrongs that you've got in, or try and rectify the wrongs that you've got in your own society. Okay. Sorry. See, if you again point and say that we've got a problem in leadership, is that what you're saying? With leadership, then again there's a massive problem there. Because most of the leaders, they didn't just come out of a vacuum. And if you're going to say, oh, the whole problem is based on external influence, there is external influence, but let's be honest, it's more of a problem of internal, internally the country's in a mess than external problems. So for example, if you remove any of these leaders, there are hundreds and thousands of them beneath him that are waiting to get into his position. Because the society is such that he's got enough of them to replace him. And they're all sitting below him complaining about him, but when they come into his position, they're no different to him. You understand? So the problem is not just that he's one leader, he's problematic, I understand that. His council, they're probably problematic as well. But any of them go away, there's many that come and they're just as bad as the people underneath. And it's going all the way down to the tea seller. All the way down to the small corner shop. Because even he is doing corruption. He's taking bribes, or he's trying to cheat someone with a bit of, just to make a few pennies. The guy above him is trying to cheat for a few pounds. The guy above him is cheating for a few £100. The guy above him is for a few £1,000. The guy above him is on tens of thousands. The guy above him is cheating in the millions. But the cheating is cheating. It's all across. Most of these countries, the judicial system is corrupt. Yep. But it's not just the judges that are corrupt. It's right down to the last man down, because everyone thinks, oh, I need to win this court case. Oh, I'll just take a whole wad of money, just give it to him. Oh, I need to save myself. It's okay for me to give 20,000, 30,000 rupees, whatever, or whatever taka, whatever it is, yeah. dinars or whatever, I'll give that much to save myself. It's okay for me to do for myself, but it's not okay for anybody else to do. It's corruption. So leadership is one way of looking at it, but I wouldn't say it's a problem with leadership. It's a problem within. Okay, and I know there is problem of external influence, but that's not our real problem. Our real problem is within our own selves, and unless we address that, it's not going to change. And which is one thing to what the brother said. How do people change this? Well, again, it depends where people are. If people need to go and learn more about Islam, then go and learn the right Islam wherever you can. If people need to go and find, where they can practice Islam more, there are many venues, many ways, many places that you can find. Even reading books and being with people, teachers, scholars, imams, whoever, trying to attach yourself with them. Even online things that people have got. You can make a move to, if you want to make a shift. You can make a move to learn more and to become a person who's more deep in the deen. It's all there. The case is whether we want to do it or whether we do it or not, and to make that shift. Any other questions? Yes, brother. Yeah. Okay, so I said about Abu Talib. Abu Talib knew of Allah like all the other mushriks in Mecca. He also believed in Allah, yes, like all the other mushriks in Mecca. The only difference between Abu Talib and the other mushriks were that they were not too sympathetic towards Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but Abu Talib was. He even said at his deathbed, he said a poem that clearly shows that he addressed our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, I know you are on the right deen, but I can't accept it because of what others will say after my death. That I was on I was on the deen of my forefathers until the last moment, and I gave it up, abandoned it for what you said. And he said a poetry of that kind on his deathbed, which showed that he knew the truth of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he just didn't want to accept it. Okay. Yes.
Well, according to numbers of people come from part-time, right? Now we have to take part of responsibility ourselves as a Muslim group or Muslim person to go and invite.
Yes.
Actually, the more you invite a person, the more to reflect on it. So it will bring him back what.
It's good. Again, the brothers said that's what I meant by the right group in between, which is that when you're together and you're giving dawah to one another. This is what I meant by, it's a good point that he said, what I meant by making that transition, getting into a group, a right group or a few groups, whatever you're with, once we can have the right influence on us to make us not only believe deeper, but practice Islam for a long time, and we look over each other. I meant what the brother has just said now, which is that we give dawah to each other. You've got to give dawah. Without dawah, you haven't got that pull. And what the brother said is that if somebody is not coming to the masjid, then you become an active person to try and call them towards the masjid, towards the right thing. And that's where the transition comes for a person to make it here, to the third one, and to be more deep in their faith and practice and belief. And yes, dawah is something that is important. Any other final questions? Go on. The brother is asking is that there are certain people certain groups out there who just believe that the Quran is the true source that we can believe in, and that we have to disregard the Sunnah or disregard Bukhari and the Ahadith and so on, and just take the Quran. These people, if they actually reject the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then it's a massive question on their faith. It's a massive question on their faith, because you cannot take the Quran and just believe in and practice Islam fully. You just can't do that, because it goes hand in hand with the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And I have spoken about these people before, and just to add on to a couple of things is, these people, they start to try and believe from this Quran, but you know what they end up doing? I read actually a book. There's a book of one of these guys. I actually bought the book to understand them better. And when I read certain parts of it, I say, Ya Allah, Inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un. So what is said is in this book, and these are the Qurani people, right? Quraniyin or Quranic people, whatever you call them, yeah? What is said in this book is very shocking. He said, Fajr has been mentioned in the Quran. And he said, Isha has been mentioned in the Quran. And he said, again, let me get it right there. I think he said, yeah. No. He said Maghrib because he says Ghurubi Shams. Ghurubi Shams. So he said, that has been mentioned. And then he says the Taraful Layl, two ends of on the day and night has been mentioned. So then he said, Dhuhr hasn't been mentioned and Asr hasn't been mentioned. I know you're saying Wal Asri Innal Insana, but that is more to do with time and not to do with the actual Salat of Asr. So what he said is, he said, in the book, I'm reading this and I'm thinking, Astaghfirullah al-Azim. He actually wrote this, that where did the Muslims get Dhuhr and Asr from? They're practicing Dhuhr. He said they shouldn't be doing it. He said there are 5 daily prayers, but then he said Fajr, Maghrib, Isha, and then 2 parts of the day. I think he referred to some nightly prayer, some other prayer. And he said it's not Dhuhr and Asr. Now, there are many other things. It's a thick book, and when I read a bit of it, I kind of, Allah, astaghfirullah, tawbah, and then I have to go back in there, and I get quite shocked. And you can't just read the book straight up. But some of these beliefs that if you base it just in the Quran, I don't know what kind of religion you're going to come up with, because it's not going to be the religion that was being practiced for 1400 years. So yes, you're right. These people are not really the true sort of Muslims. So we've got to be careful of this, and it's a growing number of people who are actually approaching this in their day and time, that they're saying just go to the Quran and that's it. It's quite scary, because if you really think about it, the very principle on which they rejected the Sunnah, they can end up rejecting the Quran. Yes, in YouTube, this is nothing. Social media has made it very easy for you to learn the deen and very easy for you to abandon the deen. Both. It's a two-way gut. So what you're saying about Somalia is not just in Somalia, it's in many parts. We've had this in Pakistan and India and other places for a long time, but they haven't been as widespread as what's happening today, because through social media, they're getting their message across very quick through Facebook, through many other platforms, YouTube and so on. They're getting their message across very quickly, right? And it's not just in one country; it's in several countries. In fact, it's worse in the West, because in the West people have got the freedom of thought as well, and they can go on saying this. And what I would say to you is, we've got to be careful, because think about this argument. If they rejected the Sunnah by saying, how the Sunnah was collected, how the Hadith was collected, is not all authentic, and this person, his memory wasn't probably good, and that one, his memory wasn't that good, and using those arguments to reject Bukhari and reject Muslim, reject the Hadith. Sooner or later, these people are going to say the same thing about this. Na'udhu billah. They're going to start saying that, the Sahaba that came, look, Abu Bakr sent Zayd bin Thabit is going around and he can't find, they haven't even got, it's very funny this year. To accept this Quran, you have to accept it on the authority of the Sunnah. Because only the Sunnah tells you how the Quran was collected. Nowhere in the Quran it says to you how the Quran was collected. And if the Quran said, believe in me because I'm the truth, and that's it, the truth is contained within me, and don't go outside to any other source for the truth, how can you do that? You've got to believe in this, you need to believe, you need to verify it from something else, right? And the only way we verify this is through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Which is fine. But the only way we verify it from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran, in between are who? The Sahaba. The Sahaba and the narrations, the narrators. You understand? Without that, you haven't got this. If no Sahabi, because Sahaba are narrators, right? If no Sahabi ever wrote the Quran, you think about it. If they didn't narrate the Quran from the Prophet and wrote it on palm leaves and fiber, if they never did that, Okay, and the Prophet was the only one who got it straight from Allah and gave it. That never happened, right? Did that happen? No, it didn't. Prophet got wahi, he woke up, he had a very deep sort of trance, and he woke up and straight away he said the verses. But he couldn't write himself. So he had to tell the Sahaba to write. The Sahaba wrote it. Sahaba kept the palm fiber leaves and the leather and other things in the houses. Okay? None of that was collected in the Prophet's time. Prophet went away. He passed away. Then came the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And in that time, first it was Umar radiallahu came to Abu Bakr and said, "Oh Abu Bakr, we have to collect the Quran, because the people who know the Quran off by heart, which is the real thing that we rely on, it's getting lost. You have to give the order and get the Quran together. Let's get all these pieces from people's homes together and make it into one book." It took a long time for him to be convinced, and then he convinced. They both called Zayd bin Thabit radiallahu anhu, and they convinced him over a long period of time, and then he went around and started to collect all the pieces, and every piece he collected, he had to have two witnesses that were there at the time when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them to write it. It couldn't be one witness, it had to be two. So there's a massive process that happened. All of that is what is in the hadith. You understand? His whole effort is as a narrator. He's not the Prophet, he's a Sahabi, he's a companion, right? And you have to trust him, trust Abu Bakr, trust Umar radiallahu anhum, trust all the Sahaba whose houses he collected it from, right? In order to believe in the Quran. And if you find that you can poke at these people for the Sunnah, then you can poke at them for the Quran. Do you all understand that? If the same people are narrating hadith and they're giving to others, the Prophet also said this, that's a hadith, and these Qurani people say, no, we can't accept that. We can't accept the hadith. But the same people are saying, yeah, the Prophet told us this and this was the Quran. And you say, yeah, I can accept that. What's going on? You're the same person, when he says Quran, you accept it. When he says hadith, you don't accept it. There's a real problem there. And that's where the real danger is, because soon they will be rejecting the Quran. And this has happened in the past. May Allah Azza wa Jal protect us. Anyway guys, Jazakumullah khair. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الذكر علم ونور الحاملات سنا ونور والرسمات هنا سرور يا حلوها تلك السنين.
The Safar curriculum covers all the Islamic educational needs of young Muslims today in a fun, simple and engaging way. Tried and tested for over 15 years at one of the UK's leading maktabs, the curriculum has been adopted by hundreds of institutions around the world and makes your child's journey in seeking knowledge easy, meaningful and dynamic. This innovative and comprehensive curriculum covers Quran and Tajweed, Islamic studies, du'as and surahs, as well as Arabic in an integrated and structured way. Visit safarpublications.org to find out more.